Goodbye, Ethel. It's a pity you won't believe me. I wanted to let you and Horace down gently, or I shouldn't be here.
But you're always prophesying these dreadful things, Winnie, and nothing ever happens. Would you remember the day when you tried to invade the House of Commons from submarine boats? How Horace did laugh when he saw in the papers that you had all been landed on the Hovis Wharf by mistake. Or by accident on purpose, Horace said. We couldn't stop laughing all the evening. Oh, what price your sister Winifred, he said. She asked for a vote and they gave her bread, he kept on. You can't think how funny he was about it.
Oh, but I can. I know my dear brother-in-law's sense of humor is his strong point. Well, we must hope it will bear the strain that is going to be put on it today. Of course, when his female relations invade his house, all with the same story, I've come to be supported. He may think it excruciatingly funny. One never knows.
Winnie, you're only teasing me. But they would never do such a thing. They must know we have only one spare bedroom, when that's to be for a paying guest when we can afford to furnish it.
The servants' bedroom will be empty. Don't forget that all the domestic servants have joined the League and are going to strike too.
Well, not us, Winnie. Martha is simply devoted to me. Well, and poor little Lily couldn't leave. She has no home to go to. She would have to go to the workhouse.
Exactly why she will go. All those women who have no male relatives or are refused help by those they have instructions to go to the relieving officer. The number of female paupers who will pour through the workhouse gates tonight all over England will frighten the guardians into blue fits.
Well, Horace says you'll never frighten the government into giving you the vote.
It's your husband, your dear Horace, and a million other dear Horaces who are going to do the frightening this time. By tomorrow, perhaps before, Horace will be marching to Westminster shouting out, "Votes for women!"
Winnie, how absurd you are! Well, you know how often you've tried to convert Horace and failed. Is it likely that he will become a suffragette just because...
Just because. Go on, Ethel.
Well, you know. Well, all this you've been telling me about his relations coming here and asking him to support them. Well, of course I don't believe it. Agatha, for instance, would never dream of giving up her situation. Well, but if they did come, Horace would just tell them he couldn't keep them. How could he on £4 a week?
How could he? That's the point. He couldn't, of course. That's why he'll want to get rid of them at any cost, even the cost of letting women have the vote. That's why he and the majority of men in this country should for years have kept alive the foolish superstition that all women are supported by men. For years we have told them it was a delusion, but they could not take our arguments seriously. Their method of answering us was exactly that of the little boy in the street who cries, "Ooh, suffragette," when he sees my ribbon.
Oh, I always wish you wouldn't wear that when you come here. Horace does so dislike it. He thinks it unwomanly.
Oh, does he? Tomorrow he may want to borrow it, when he and the others have had the object lesson. They wouldn't listen to argument. So we had to expose the pious fraud about women's place in the world in a very practical and sensible way. At this very minute, working women of every grade in every part of England are ceasing work and going to demand support and the necessities of life from their nearest male relatives, however distant the nearest relative may be. I hope, for your sake, Ethel, that Horace's relatives aren't an exacting lot.
There wasn't a word about it in the Daily Mail this morning.
Never mind. The evening papers will make up for it.
What male relative are you going to, Winnie? Uncle Joseph?
Oh, I'm in the fighting line, as usual, so our dear uncle will be spared. My work is with the great army of women who have no male belongings of any kind. I shall be busy till midnight marshalling them to the workhouse. This is perhaps the most important part of the strike. By this, we shall hit men as ratepayers, even when they have escaped us as relatives. Every man, either in a public capacity or a private one, will find himself face to face with the appalling problem of maintaining millions of women in idleness. Will the men take up the burden, do you think? Not they. Oh, good heavens, the strike began ages ago. I must be off. I've wasted too much time here already.
Well, I had no idea it was so late. I must ring for Horace's tea. He may be home any minute.
Poor Horace.
Why poor Horace? I don't think he has anything to complain of.
I feel some pity at this minute for all the men.
What can have happened to Martha?
She's gone, my dear, that's all.
Nonsense. She's been with me ever since I was married, and I pay her very good wages. Where's Martha, Lily?
She's left, Mum.
Left? But she never gave me notice.
No, Mum. We wasn't to give no notice, but at 3 o'clock we was to quit.
But why? Don't be a silly little girl, and you mustn't come in here with your hat.
I was just going when you rang. It's what I got me out on for.
Going? it's not your afternoon out.
I'm going back to the Union. There's dozens of others going with me.
But why?
Miss Crestabel. She told us, she said to us, now look here, all of you who've got no men to go to on Thursday. You've got to go to the Union, she says, and the one who hangs back. And she looked at me, she did. Maybe the person who the whole strain of the movement is resting on. The traitor who's sailing under the hostile flag. She says, and I say that won't be me. No, mum.
Well, Ethel, are you beginning to believe?
Oh, I think it's very unkind, very wicked. How am I to get Horace anything to eat with no servants?
Cheer up, my dear. Horace and the others can end the strike when they choose, but they're going to have a jolly bad time first. Goodbye.
Wait a bit, miss. I'm coming with you.
Oh, no. Oh, Lily, please don't go. Oh, at any rate, bring up the kettle first and the chops and the frying pan. Oh, please. Oh, then I think I can manage. No.
Here you are, miss. It's the best I can do. There's no ill feeling. You see, I've got to be recognised by the state. I don't think I'm a criminal nor a lunatic, and I oughtn't be treated as such.
You poor little simpleton. Do you suppose that even if this absurd plan succeeds, you will get a vote?
I may. You never know your luck, but that's not why I'm giving up work. It's so I shan't stop him, as ought to have it. The whole strain is on me, and I'm going to the Union, so goodbye, Mum.
And I've always been so kind to you. Oh, you little brute. Oh, what will Horace say? Oh, it can't be true. Everything looks the same as usual. Oh, here's Horace. And Gerald Williams with him.
We must have at least 16 dreadnoughts this year.
You can't get 'em, old chap, unless you expect the blooming colonies to pay for 'em.
Oh, I hope Horace hasn't asked him to tea. You're back early, aren't you, Horry? How do you do, Mr. Williams?
How do you do, Mrs. Cole? I just dropped in to fetch a book your husband's promised to lend me.
Had a good day, Horry?
Oh, much as usual. Ah, here it is. Where's the Washtub Now? With a preface by Lord Curzon of Kettleston, published by the Men's League for Opposing Women's Suffrage. If that doesn't settle you, missus, nothing will.
Is Mrs. Williams a suffragette?
Rather. And whenever I say anything, all she's gonna answer is, you know nothing about it. Thank you, old man. I'll read it to her after tea. So long. Goodbye, Mrs. Cole.
Did Mrs. Williams tell you anything this morning, before you went to the city?
About votes for women, do you mean? Oh, no. Not allowed at breakfast. In fact, not allowed at all. I tried to stop her going to these meetings where they fill the women's heads with all sorts of rubbish, and she said she'd give 'em up if I gave up my football matches. So we agreed to disagree. See you tomorrow, old chap. Goodbye, Mrs. Cole.
You might have asked him to stop for tea. You made him very welcome, I don't think.
I'm sorry, but I don't think he'd have stayed if I had asked him.
Very likely not. But one should always be hospitable. Tea ready?
We're not quite, dear. It will be in a minute.
What on earth is all this?
Oh, nothing. But I only thought I would cook your chop for you up here today. Just for fun.
I really think, Ethel, that so long as we can afford a servant, it's rather unnecessary.
Well, you know you're always complaining of Martha's cooking. Well, I thought you would like me to try.
My dear child, it's very nice of you, but why not cook in the kitchen?
Oh,
We'll meet in the sitting room.
oh horrid don't!
What's the matter? Ethel, dear, don't be hysterical. If you knew what it was to come home tired to death and be worried like this. I'll ring for Martha and tell her to take away these beastly chops. They're getting on my nerves.
Martha's gone!
When? Why? Did you have a row? suppose you had to give her a month's wages. I can't afford that sort of thing, you know.
It's not you who afford it anyhow. Why don't I pay Martha out of my own money?
Do you call it ladylike to throw that in my
I'm
face?
not throwing it in your face. But as it happens, I didn't pay her anything. She went off without a word. Oh, Lily's gone too.
Well, that's good riddance. I'm sick of her dirty face and slovenly ways. If she does ever clean my boots, she makes them look worse than when I took them off. We must try and get a charwoman.
We shan't be able to. Isn't it in the papers?
What are you talking about?
Winifred said it would be in the evening papers.
Winifred! She's been here, has she? That accounts for everything. How that woman comes to be your sister, I can't imagine. Of course she's mixed up with this wildcat scheme.
Well, then you know about it.
No, I saw something about suffragettes on strike on the posters on my way home. Who cares if they do strike? They're no use to anyone. Look at Winifred. What does she ever do except go around making speeches and kicking up a row outside the House of Commons until she forces the police to arrest her? Then she goes to the prison and poses as a martyr. Martyr! We all know she could go home at once if she would promise the magistrate to behave herself. What they ought to do is to try all these hysterical women in camera and sentence them to be ducked. Privately. Then they'd soon give up advertising themselves.
Winnie has a splendid answer to that, but I forget what it is. Oh, Horry, was there anything on the posters about the nearest male relative?
Ethel? My dear, you haven't gone dotty, have you? You've quite done with my chair, Thank you.
Well, Winnie said that not only are all the working men going to strike, but they are going to make their nearest male relatives support them.
Rot!
Well, I thought how dreadful it would be if Agatha came, or that cousin of yours on the stage whom you won't let me know. Oh, or your Aunt Lizzie. Martha and Lily have gone to their male relatives. Or at least, Lily's gone to the workhouse. Oh, it's all the same thing. Why shouldn't it be true? Oh, look, Horace. There's a cab with luggage. Oh, what shall we do?
Don't fuss. It's stopping next door, not here at all.
No, it's here.
Come back! You can't open the door yourself. It looks like if we didn't keep a servant.
Oh, it is Agatha. And such a big box. Oh, where can we put it?
How do you do, Horace? Dear Ethel, you're not looking so well as usual. Would you mind paying the cabman 2 shillings, Horace, and helping him with my box? It's rather heavy, but then it contains all my worldly belongings.
Agatha, you haven't lost your situation. You haven't left the Lewises.
Yes, Horace, I left at 3 o'clock.
My dear Agatha, I'm extremely sorry, but we can't put you up here.
Hadn't you better pay the cab? 2 shillings so soon becomes 2 and 6. I'm afraid my brother doesn't realize that I have some claim on him.
We thought you were so happy with the Lewises. Laurie said you always had late dinner with them when they had no company.
Oh, I have no complaint against my late employers. In fact, I was sorry to inconvenience them by leaving so suddenly. But I had a higher duty to perform than my duty to them.
Oh, I don't know what to do. It will worry Horace dreadfully.
The cab was 2 and 6, and I had to give a man 2 pence to help me with that Noah's Ark. Now, Agatha, what does this mean? Surely in your position it was very unwise to leave the Lewises. You can't stay here. We must make some arrangement.
Any arrangement you like, dear, provided you support me.
I support you.
As my nearest male relative, I think you are obliged to do so. If you refuse, I must go to the workhouse.
But why can't you support yourself? You've done it for years.
Yes, ever since I was 18. Now I am going to give up work until my work is recognized. Either my proper place is the home provided for me by some dear father, brother, husband, cousin, or uncle, or I am a self-supporting member of the state who ought not to be shut out from the rights of citizenship.
All of this sounds as if you've become a suffragette. Oh, Agatha, I always thought you were a lady.
Yes, I was a lady. Such a lady that at 18 I was thrown upon the world, penniless, with no training whatever which fitted me to earn my own living.
When women become citizens, I believe that daughters will be given the same chances as sons, and such a life as mine will be impossible.
Women are so illogical. What on earth has all this to do with your planting yourself on me in this inconsiderate way? You put me in the most unpleasant position. You must see, Agatha, that I haven't the means to support a sister as well as a wife. Well, couldn't you go to some friends until you find another situation?
No, Horace, I'm going to stay with you.
Oh, indeed, and for how long, if I may ask?
Until the bill for the removal of the sex disability is passed.
Nonsense! I can't keep you, and I won't. I have always tried to do my duty by you. I think hardly a week passes that I don't write to you. But now that you have deliberately thrown up an excellent situation as governess, and come here and threatened me, yes, threatened me, I think it's time to say that, sister or no sister, I will be master in my own house.
Uncle Horace, how are you? Is that Aunt Aggie? How do you do? I haven't seen you since I was a kid.
What have you come for?
There's a charming welcome to give your only niece.
You know perfectly well, Molly, that I disapprove of you in every way. I hear, I've never read it, of course, but I hear that you've written the most scandalous book. You live in lodgings by yourself, when if you chose, you could afford some really nice and refined boarding house. You have the most undesirable acquaintances and altogether...
Cheer up, Uncle. Now's your chance at reforming me. I've come to live with you. You can support me and approve me at the same time.
I have never heard such impertinence. I have always understood from you that you earn more than I do.
Yes, but you never liked my writing for money, did you? You called me sexless once, because I said that as long as I could support myself, I didn't feel an irresistible temptation to marry the awful little bounder Weeks.
Reginald Weeks? How can you call him a bounder? He was at Oxford.
Hello, Auntie Ethel. I didn't notice you. You'll be glad to hear I haven't brought much luggage. Only a nightgown and some golf clubs.
I suppose this is a joke.
Well, of course that's one way of looking at it. I'm not going to support myself any longer. I'm going to be the perfect lady and depend on my Uncle Horace, my nearest male relative, for the necessities of life. Aren't you glad I'm not going to write another scandalous book or live in lodgings by myself?
Horace, there's someone getting out of a motor. A grand motor. Who can it be? And there's no one to answer the door.
That doesn't matter. I found it open and left it open to save the trouble.
Oh, she's got luggage too. Chauffeur's bringing in a dressing case.
I'll turn her to the street. And the dressing case too. Oh.
You are Mr. Cole?
No, certainly not. At least I was this morning, but...
Horace Cole, son of John Hay Cole, formerly of Streatham, where he carried on the
I
business
beg your pardon, but my late father's business has really nothing to do with this matter. To a professional man, it is rather trying to have these things raked up against him. Excuse me, but do you want your motor to go?
It's not my motor any longer, and yes, I do want it to go, for I may be staying here some time. I think you had one sister, Agatha, and one brother, Samuel, now dead. Samuel was much older than you?
Why don't you answer, Uncle Horace? Yes, that's perfectly correct. Samuel Cole was my father.
I'm very glad to meet you. I didn't know I had such charming relations. Well, Mr. Cole, my father was John Hay Cole's first cousin, so you, I think, are my second cousin and my nearest male relative.
If anyone calls me that again, I shall go mad.
I'm afraid you aren't quite pleased with the relationship.
You must excuse me, but I don't consider a second cousin exactly a relation.
Oh, it answers the purpose. I suddenly find myself destitute, and I want you to support me. I'm sure you would not like a Cole to go to the workhouse.
I don't care a damn where any of them go.
Horia, how can you?
That's frank at any rate, but I am sure, Cousin Horace, that in spite of your manners, your heart's in the right place. You won't refuse me board and lodging until Parliament makes it possible for me to resume my work?
My dear madam, do you realize that my salary is £3 10 shillings a week, and that my house will hardly hold your luggage, much less you?
Then you must agitate. Your female relatives have supported themselves up till now and asked nothing from you. I myself, dear cousin, was, until this morning, running a profitable dressmaking business in Hanover Square. In my public capacity, I am Madame Christine.
I know. I've never been able to afford you.
Do you think, Madame Christine...
Cousin Susan, please.
Do you think that you are justified in coming to a poor old clerk and coming and asking him to support you, I could probably turn over my yearly income in a single week. Did you come here in your own motor?
At 3 o'clock, that motor became the property of the Women's Social and Political Union. All the rest of my property and all available cash have been divided equally between the National Union and the Women's Freedom League. Money is the sinews of war, you know.
Do you mean to tell me that you've given all of your money to the suffragettes? It's a pity you haven't a husband. He'd very soon stop your doing such foolish things.
I had a husband once. He liked me to do foolish things, for instance, to support him. After that unfortunate experience, Cousin Horace, you may imagine how glad I am to find a man who really is a man and will support me instead. By the way, I should so much like some tea. Is the kettle boiling?
There aren't enough cups. Oh, what shall I do?
Never mind, Ethel. I shan't want any. I'm going to dine in town and go to the theatre. I shall hope to find you all gone when I come back. If not, I shall send for the police.
Hello, hello! Who's talking about the police? Not my dear cousin Hory.
How dare you come here?
Necessity, old dear. If I had a livelier male relative, you may better have gone to him. But you, Horace, are the only first cousin of this poor orphan. What are you in such a hurry for?
Let me pass. I'm going to the theatre.
Silly Jay, the theatres are all closed. And the halls, too. The actresses have gone on strike, resting indefinitely. I've done my little bit towards that. They won't get any more work out of Marty Spark, Queen of Comedians, until the women have got the vote. Ladies and fellow relatives, you'll be pleased to hear the strike's going fine. The big drapers can't open tomorrow. One man can't fill the place of 15 young ladies at once, you see. The duchesses are out in the streets, begging people to come in and watch their kids. The city men are trying to get the taxi men in to do their typewriting. Every man like Hory here has his house full of females. Most of them thought, like Hory, that they go to the theatre to escape. But there's not a blessed theatre to go to. Oh, it's a song it'll make. A woman's place is in the home. I don't think.
Even if this is not a plot against me personally, even if there are other women in London at this minute disgracing their sex.
Yes, stop it. Come off it. If it comes to that, what are you doing? Threatening your womankind with the police and the workhouse.
I was not addressing myself to you.
And why not, Uncle Horace? She's your cousin. She needs your protection just as much as we do.
I regard that woman as the skeleton in the cupboard of a respectable family, but that's neither here nor there. I address myself to the more ladylike portion of this gathering, and I say that whatever is going on, the men will know what to do and will do it with dignity and firmness. Few exhibitions of this kind won't frighten them.
Oh, won't it? I like that. They're being so firm and so dignified that they're running down to the House of Commons like lunatics and blackguarding the government for not having given us the vote before.
Extra special. Theater's closed.
Splendid. Have they begun already?
Get a paper, Cousin Horace. I know some men never believe anything till they see it in the paper.
The boys are shouting out something now. Listen.
Extra, theater's closed. Extra special star. Men petition the government. Votes for women, extra special.
Oh, heavens, here's Aunt Lizzie.
Well, dears, all ya? That's right. Where's Horace? Out? Just as well. We can talk more freely. I'm sorry I'm late, but animals do so hate to move. Took a long time to make 'em understand the strike, but I think they'll be very comfortable here. Oh, you love dogs, don't you, Ethel?
Not Ponto. He always growls at me.
Clever dog. He knows you don't sympathize with the cause.
But I do, Aunt. Only, I have always said that as I was happily married, I thought it had very little to do with me.
You've changed your mind about that today, I should think. What a day it's been. We never expected everything would go so smoothly. They say the bills be rushed through at once. No more broken promises, no more talking out, deeds, not words at last. Oh, seen the papers? The press are not boycotting us today, my dears. The boy who sold them to me put the money back into Ponto's collecting box. That dog must have made £5 for the cause since this morning.
Oh, do listen to this. It's too splendid. Women's strike latest. Messer and Lyons Company announced that by special arrangement with the War Office, the places of the defaulting waitresses will be filled by non-commissioned officers and men of the 2nd Battalion Coldstream Guards. Business will therefore be carried on as usual.
What do you think of this? Latest intelligence. It is understood that the naval volunteers have been approached by the authorities with the object of inducing them to act as charwoman of the House of Commons.
Well, my dear, read then what the star says.
The queue of women waiting for admission to Westminster Workhouse is already 1.5 miles in length. As the entire police force are occupied in dealing with the men's processions, Lord Asher has been approached with a view to ascertaining if the territorials can be sworn in as special constables.
Oh, this is a little bit of all right. Our special representative, on calling upon the Prime Minister, the object of ascertaining his views on the situation, was informed that the right honourable gentleman was unable to receive him, as he is actively engaged in making his bed with the assistance of the boot boy and a Foreign Office messenger.
Always unwilling to receive people, you see. Well, he must be feeling sorry now that he never received us. Everyone's putting the blame onto him. It's extraordinary how many men, and newspapers too, I've suddenly found out they have always been in favor of women's suffrage. That's a sensible attitude, of course. It would be humiliating for them to confess that it was not until we held a pistol to their heads that they changed their minds. Well, at this minute, I would rather be the man who has been our ally all along than the one who has been our enemy. It's not the popular thing to be an anti anymore. Any man who tries to oppose us today is likely to be strung up to the nearest lamppost.
Oh, Horry! Oh, my Horry!
Why, bless the boy, what are you doing under there?
Oh, nothing. I merely thought I'd be less in the way here, that's all.
You didn't hide when I came in by any chance.
Hide from you? Aren't you always welcome in this house?
Well, I haven't noticed it particularly, and I'm not calling today, you understand. I've come to stay. Well, I won't deny it was a wrench to leave 118A, Upper Montague Place, where I've done me best for my boarders, old and young, gents and ladies, for 25 years, and no complaints. From home, they call it. All my ladies had left before I started out on the same business as all of us. But what those poor boys will do for their dinner tonight, I don't know. They're a helpless lot. Well, it's all over. I've given up my boarding house, and I depend on you, Horace, to keep me until I'm admitted to citizenship. It may take a long time.
It must not take a long time. I shan't allow it. It shall be done at once. Well, you needn't all look so surprised. I know I've been against it, but I didn't realize things. I thought only a few howling dervishes wanted the vote, but when I find that you, Aunt, fancy a woman of your firmness of character, one who has always been so careful with her money, being declared incapable of voting, the thing is absurd.
Bravo! Our Horry's waking up.
If there are a few women here and there who are incapable, I mention no names, mind, it doesn't affect the position. What's going to be done? Who's going to do it? If this rotten government thinks that we're going to maintain millions of women in idleness just because they don't like the idea of my Aunt Lizzie making a scratch on a bit of paper and shoving it into a ballot box once every 5 years, well, this government have reckoned without the men. I'll show them what I've got to vote for. What do they expect? You can't all marry. There aren't enough men to go around, and if you're earning your own living and paying taxes, you ought to have a say. It's only fair.
Bravo!
Government are narrow-minded idiots.
Hear, hear.
They talk as if all the women ought to stay at home washing and ironing. Well, before a woman has a washtub, she must have a home to put it in, mustn't she? And who's going to give it to her? I'd like them to tell me that. Do they expect me to do it?
Yes, dear.
If they say she can do it herself and keep herself, so much the better for everyone. Anyhow, who are the government? They're only representing me and being paid thousands a year by me for carrying out my wishes.
Oh, what ho!
I like a woman to be a woman. That's the way I was brought up. But if she insists on having a vote,
She does.
and apparently she does,
She does.
I don't see why she shouldn't have it. Many a woman came in here in the last election and tried to wheedle me into voting for a particular candidate. If she has time to do that, and I never heard the member say that she ought to be at home washing the baby, well, I don't see why she shouldn't have time to vote. It's never taken up much of my time or interfered with my work. I've only voted once in my life, but that's neither here nor there. I know what the vote does for me. It gives me a status. And that's what you women want, a status.
Yes.
I might even call it a locus standi. If I go now and tell these rotten cabinet ministers what I think of them, it's my locus standi.
That's a good word.
That will force them to listen to me. Oh, I know, and by gum I shall give them a bit of my mind. They shall hear a few home truths for once. Gentlemen, I shall say. Well, that won't be true of all of them to start with, but one must give them the benefit of the doubt. Gentlemen, The men of England are sick and tired of your policy. Who's driven the women of England into this? You! Because you were too stupid to know that they meant business. Because you couldn't read the writing on the wall.
Oh, hear, hear.
It may be nothing to you, gentlemen, that every industry in this country is paralyzed, and every Englishman's home has been turned into a howling wilderness.
Good mild, Uncle.
A howling wilderness, I repeat, by your refusal to see what's as plain as the nose on your face. I would have you know, gentlemen, that it is something to us. We aren't slaves.
Never.
We will never be slaves.
Never.
And we insist on reform, gentlemen. Conditions have changed, and women have to work. Don't men encourage them to work and fight them to work?
Make them work.
And women are placed in the same battle of life as on the same terms we are. Short of one thing, the locus standi of a vote.
Good old locus standi.
And if you aren't going to give it to them, gentlemen, and if they won't go back to their occupations without it, we ask you, how are they going to live? Who's going to support them? Perhaps you're thinking of giving them all old age pensions and asking the country to pay the piper. The country will see you damned first, if gentlemen, you'll pardon the expression. It's dawning upon all of us that women would have never taken such a step as this if they hadn't been the victims of gross injustice.
Never.
Why shouldn't they have a voice in the laws which regulate the price of food and clothes? Don't they pay for their food and clothes?
Paid for mine all my life.
Why shouldn't they have a voice in the rate of wages and the hours of labor in certain industries? Aren't they working at those industries? If you had a particle of common sense or decent feeling, gentlemen.
Cole, come on. You'll be late. The procession's forming at the town hall. There's no time to lose. What are you slacking ear for? Perhaps this isn't good enough for you. I've got 12 of them in my drawing room. We shall be late for the procession if we don't start at once. Hurry up. Come on. Votes for women. Where's your banner? Where's your badge? Down with the government. Rule Britannia. Votes for women. Do you want to support a dozen women for the rest of your life, or don't you? Every man in Brixton is going out to Westminster. Borrow a ribbon and come along. Hurry up now. Hooray! Votes for women. Rule Britannia. Women never shall be slaves. Votes for women.
You may all depend on me, all of you, to see justice done. When you want a thing done, get a man to do it.
My hero.
Votes for women!
Votes for